Okay, so today I'm doing some package source, and for package source I wanted to add some packages. This is one. It's called fd-proxy. So let me pull up what it's trying to be. It comes from this web page, GitHub Wingunder fd-proxy, and as it says here in the comment, and I'm going to try my magic wand for highlighting stuff. Yes. It works. As it says here in the comment, glue for making a TCP proxy using OOX by TCP tools. OOX by TCP tools, you say? The hell are those? OOX by TCP, if you know about inetd, and if you've run Unix machines before, Linux machines, you probably do, then you kind of know about OOX by TCP. inetd is a program that does the listening on the network for you so that your network services don't have to have network code in them. Sounds kind of silly. Like, why don't you want your web server to have network code in it? Because every place that there's code, there are bugs. And the less code your application can have, if your application is a server of some kind, that's still true, the fewer bugs you're going to have. And OOX by TCP takes this idea, and it's a very Unixy idea to put things that can be in separate processes in separate processes. OOX by TCP takes this idea and runs with it. It makes it so that there's something like inetd, but it only runs one program as its child, and you run as many of these as you need to for the different children that you have. And then there's a client analog. There's TCP server that you use instead of inetd, and there's TCP client that you use instead of I don't know what, because there hadn't been anything quite like it before. It's a little bit like Netcat, which is a client that you usually would use to connect to a TCP server. But again, it's designed to run something programmatically from it. So what's the interface for the programs that run under OOX by TCP? Um, they're basically the same whether it's the client or the server. In both cases, like I said, there's no network code in your program. That's handled by TCP server, TCP client. There is application code in your program for reading what the client says and writing what the client should see. And all you do for that in an OOX by TCP universe is read from standard input, file descriptor 0, and write to standard output, file descriptor 1. It's a little bit different for TCP client. I think there the file descriptors are 6 and 7. That's the convention. But otherwise, same thing. So that's, when we say what are OOX by TCP tools, those are what we mean. I might even have a TCP server running on this machine. I don't, but this is it. TCP server, a bunch of flags, how many simultaneous connections should be permitted, connection, like which IPs should be accepted or rejected, and which environment variables should be set for the ones that are accepted. Um, Other settings like Unix group and user ID to drop privileges to, because TCP server can start as root to bind to a privilege port, and then it can drop privileges before your application even gets invoked. So there's some really nice properties of this. And then host name that we should bind to, port that we should listen on, and program that should be the actual application that's the server. It's real simple. So that's the context in which we're talking about the thing that I'm going to add to package source today. Package source being the cross-platform Unix package management system originally for NetBSD, and now also the official package provider of SmartOS, as provided by Joyent. At least for a while, it was the official package of package manager for Dragonfly. I think they do something else now. And it may still be the official package management system for Minix, which you may know as one of the inspirations for Linux. It's still a going concern, and they've been modernizing Minix. I haven't run it myself, but they're still active, and they needed a package management system, and package source is portable to most any Unix. So that's what we're looking at here. That's why I use it. I come up with NetBSD and I use it on NetBSD for my servers, but I run Mac for my laptop and for a development machine, and that's not even it. Like I find myself for work on random Unix systems with root privileges, without root privileges, and package source don't care. Package source is ready for whatever you have. And what I like about that, besides the fact that it has over 20,000 packages in there, all of which build from source, so you have a chance on a weird system to get a working package. Um, Besides that, I really like that it's so portable. One of the first things that I discovered in my early years in the early 2000s using package source um, is merely by putting a piece of code as a package into package source and otherwise changing it not at all, it has a chance to build on Solaris, even if the author of the software assumed that the whole world was Linux. Because package source has its own build time compatibility layer. I could go a lot into it at a different time, but it's super awesome. So I really appreciate my continued investment in package source. It pays off for me all the time. I do weekly builds of package source current for my server that runs NetBSD, and if anything breaks, I fix it because I'm a package source developer. So I like to discover problems as early as I can, and it's a tool of choice for me. Whenever I have a piece of software that I'm interested in, I mostly would rather try it as a package before I try it built by hand from source. I'm going to have to build it by hand from source anyway. I might as well automate it because it's pretty easy. You'll see here today. Uh, and by packaging it, I also gain the really nice property that when I don't like it, it's really easy to remove. That makes it easier to try stuff. So here's a package. We're going to do one today. This is fd-proxy. And now that we have all the context, it's the glue, it claims to be the glue for making a TCP proxy using UX by TCP tools. So I've already done a little bit of this. What happened off camera, I think it was, I don't know, last week that I started doing this and then forgot about it. What I would have done is I would have typed URL to package, and I would have pasted in some magic GitHub URL because there's no actual releases from this page. If there's a release at GitHub, that's obviously the best thing to package. The next best thing to package is that you can have GitHub give you a tarball or a zip file. I went for a tarball at any particular commit. And I don't just want to say master or main or head or trunk or whatever it is. I want a particular commit because the package system is trying to provide you something reproducible. So for each package, there are checksums and hashes. How many bytes big do we expect this tarball to be? Um, we can see what the checksums are these days. We just changed our checksums. SHA-512 is one and Blake2S is another. And so if a user with this package source is trying to build their own, package source will download it where it needs to get it from, and that's why you want a precise tag, and check it against these checksums. And if it doesn't match, it will not build. And that's important. We don't want users building random crap when we didn't intend random crap. We're trying to never intend random crap. It's part of the security of the supply chain to have this. So for that reason, I don't want to just have GitHub give me whatever the latest commit is right now, because if they ever commit another commit, then it'll be a different package and it'll break. So that's why I picked, I browsed through GitHub to see what the latest commit was, and I put that in the URL. So now it's my job to notice when there is an update, but that's better than the alternative. Yeah. So I did this already. I did URL to package with a URL to this tarball. And URL to package made this page for me, made this makefile for me. This is the beginning of a package source package. It has all the important bits and some extra ones. Things that aren't from GitHub won't have all these things, but dist name is the name of the tarball minus the extension. Package name is when we say make clean, for example. That's a pretty funny package name. So one of the things we're going to want to do is see if in the source code there's any indication of a version that we could put in here as the version. So let's do that now. I'll do a make patch, which is an extract, and if I have any patches, I don't, but that's just my finger habit. Now I can cd into there, and we can look for version numbers. There's almost no code. What does the README say? This is pretty good. We should install the README. It looks like all of the documentation right there. And what does fd-proxy.c say? Version, that's about the license, and that's it. Okay, the next best thing to do for a package is get a date. The date, at least, we can expect to be monotonically increasing. Package version comparisons really want to be in some kind of an order, and GitHub commits are not in any kind of an order. They're hashes. So I think the next best thing, it looks a lot to me like the last commit was October 25th, 2014. Let's take a quick look at GitHub and make sure that's true. Yeah, two commits, exactly two commits, and indeed October 25th, 2014. So so that doesn't change the name of the extracted directory when we extract the tarball. That is automatically generated by GitHub. So I want to make sure that package source's idea of where the source code is going to be doesn't change. That's fine. It already has it hard-coded to that git commit. And in fact, it would be better if I said GitHub tag, since we have that defined to not define it twice. That looks pretty good. And then I think also what I could say here is package base. So let's see if that's true. Make show var name equals work source. So this is a package source target show var that expands make variables through the incredibly baroque system of makefiles that is package source's infrastructure, and it says what the value would be. And it looks pretty correct to me. Work fd-proxy is the name, and that is the tag. Yeah, so we successfully refactored here in a way that we won't have to change it again when we update to the next commit someday. The name is the name, and the tag is the tag, and when we change the tag, that's it. Next, we wanted to change what happens when we make clean, and we look at what the version was. That's just an easy way to do it. There are lots of other ways. We wanted to say the date instead of that tag. So for that, I think the best way, if I'm not mistaken, is to say, whoops, I thought I was over here. I think we can say package version directly, and we would say October 25th, 2014, October 25th. Is that right? Yeah, 25th. And then instead of dist name, we want it to be package version. I'm worried that there's going to be like a circular dependency here, but maybe not. Package name looks pretty good. Okay, yeah, so I never remember if package version is derived from something else or if something else is derived from package version. If I had it backwards, make show var would have said circular dependency, blah. It didn't, so I take that to mean we did this right. I want to put that next to it. The makefile doesn't care what order it's in, it's just for the human. But I think next time I update this, assuming that there's ever another commit, it's been 7 years, I would want to look for it next to the tag to be reminded that I need to bump this version. So I'll put it there. And then otherwise, I think we're in good shape to start trying to build this thing. The next thing we need for package purposes is a description. Did it try to give us one? It took something from the README, So we can work on that. And I saw something on the GitHub page that I want to borrow, which is this little about string. Seems pretty good. So let me grab that. A simple C program for connecting the IOs of a TCP server and TCP client pair from the UXPy TCP suite in order to implement a TCP proxy. I think I'm going to say that that's parenthetical. And maybe, in fact, it is redundant with this description. Can be done in a single line. What was the single line? Here. Do I need that? No, I don't need that in the example. I don't need that in the README for the package. The fact that it's a single line is enough for the README for the package. A very small program written in C. Its purpose is to connect the IOs of a TCP server. Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to wind up deleting the first part. And TCP client pair. Yep. Okay, I see where that text came from the UXPy TCP suite. Yes, okay. Good. I'm glad we considered it. And I'm glad we set it all up here. Yeah, okay. That's a good description. As we go, when I think I'm going to be ready to commit this, I'm going to run package lint, and it will try to help me know what's left to look at. It doesn't tell me everything, but it tells me things I forget pretty often, so it's good to check. Right now it's confused because I have a editing session open, so there's a file in there that I wouldn't want to have. That's okay, no problem there. Next thing to do is to make extract. I'm going to see if there's anything that needs patching, at least for a first pass. There's a make file. What does the README say? Do I do a make? Make? No. Make files are usually pretty simple, so let's just look directly at it. Yeah, there's a test target that you hit Control C to terminate, so that's not exactly something to automate. Yeah, and you just manually type into it. Meh. That could be automated a little better if that was backgrounded and they kept the PID or or a DJB style equivalent of that, and then we ran something through the pipe and checked it. But right now they're just saying you run it and you type into it and you see what you get, and it should be the same. So that's not an automated test. If it were an automated test, I'd go over into the package and say test target equals test. And that way, anybody building the packages that wants to run the tests can have it happen for them. Um, I don't see that we're going to do that here because it doesn't look like it's automated. Now then, what do we have to do to build? The first target in a make file is the default. And the first target here is all. And it builds fd-proxy. And it looks like that's nearly all that we can build. It would build an HTML file if we asked it to from the README using pandoc. I'm not going to try to hook into that for package source. Pandoc is a pretty heavy dependency because Haskell is a pretty heavy dependency, and pandoc is written in Haskell. It would be a build time dependency, so only for people trying to generate binary packages. But if you're on a weird platform, that's you. And so if anybody really cares about this, we could make it a build time option off by default. But I don't think anybody's going to care. Markdown is fine. So I'm going to ignore this. I don't have to patch it out because nothing calls it. If I don't call it, I'm just not going to call it. And I think what we need is the program itself and maybe the rules. What's going on with the rules? Those are just some really basic TCP server rules, and they're used for the test and that's it. Again, nothing builds them explicitly. Okay, so I'm very comfortable with the idea that what this package is going to install is the built program fd-proxy and the README itself. I'm comfortable with that. I think that's a good packaging of what's here. So let's do that. I think I think when we say make, it's just going to happen to build the program that we care about and not anything else. And it did. Now, let's take another look at that make file. So there are some GCC options here. And in fact, it's interesting that it's calling GCC directly. I don't think we need to worry about the GCC being called directly because package source, I mentioned earlier, package source has a compatibility layer at build time that intercepts calls. I'm going to say more about it now. It intercepts calls to the compiler and to the linker and to libtool and to things like that, um, and provides an abstraction layer between what the package sees as compiler, linker, libtool, and binutils, and um, what compiler, linker, what toolchain the system has on it. And this is pretty uninteresting when you're on Linux and everybody writes code assuming that you're on Linux. The translation layer doesn't have a lot to do in that case. It has some, like it regularizes, normalizes the arguments to the compiler. It does some checking for which paths are permitted to be seen. That's another part of the reproducible build. Um, just because, like, say I'm a developer, say I am a package developer, I'm developing a package right now. Let's say this fd-proxy had a configure script, and the configure script would try to auto-detect if I had I don't know, TCP wrappers library on my system. And if it found the TCP wrappers library, then it would build and link with it, a runtime linkage. That's kind of cool if you're building by hand from source and you're reading a README and you want to make sure that you have everything in place and then it will find it. It's a lot less cool when you're a package manager and you want to make sure that the same input gives the same output and you don't get side effects because of what happens to be different in a build environment. And so the way we control the build environment, one of the ways, is that this abstraction layer around the tool chain uh, only permits libraries to be linked with if they were explicitly declared by the package. There are some holes in the system, but in general, that works really well. And so if I didn't say, as the packager, that we should link with TCP wrappers, then it doesn't matter if it's present on my system. The configure script won't be able to find it when it's running under the package source build system. And that's good. We want those dependencies to be explicit, and we want them to be consistent regardless of the environment so that users get the same thing I get and not randomly different based on their environment. This is part of a source-based build system. You really have to control this stuff. So we don't have that. We don't have any libraries that we're depending on. And I think it's okay that this says GCC explicitly because there will be a wrapper called GCC that will call to whatever the system's compiler is. There are specific compiler flags being passed, and that's a little odd. It would be nice if it respected the user's C flags and LD flags. Um, it will seemingly take these from the environment. It's not clear to me if this would build with bmake, so let's see if it does. Oops. Just like a lot of software assumes Linux, a lot of software assumes GNU make. And GNU make and BSD makes diverge somewhat. They have some commonality. If you write a really simple make file, they can work with both. And I don't remember if those things work with bmake. So let's see. It was able to clean. And at least very basically could build, maybe just because it couldn't expand those variables. So the next thing to find out is blow away that work directory and see if package source can build it. And if the compiler flags look any different. They don't. So what I would really like to do is patch that make file so that, for example, let's see if I have any C flags set. Yeah, so that my C flags would do that. Those are the defaults. I don't have any LD flags, but it would be nice if they were passed in. So let's do that. The way we do that is we'll clean. We will make patch, which right now does nothing. And here we go. This is package VI. It's a little wrapper around your editor of choice, probably VI, it certainly is for me. And what it will do is leave behind a .orig file so that a different tool related to package VI can generate what you changed as a patch and put it in the patches directory where it needs to be applied automatically. So the file I want to edit was not fd-proxy, it was the make file in there. And it was here that I wanted to change it. So, I mean, as long as I'm here, let's just call it CC. Um, and then I don't want to enshrine those build flags. I do want to say C flags, and I think this is also correct. To just put that there because it's not building an intermediate object file. If it was building fd-proxy.o first from fd-proxy.c and then building fd-proxy the program from the .o, then this rule would just be the C flags to build the .o, and then LD flags would only apply to building the executable. But since it's a one-liner generating a program from the C file, I think they would both go here. So now I've made my changes, and now I remember what these are about. Whoops, what what these are about. I swear I can move around. This means the target file name. It's like a magic variable, which is this. And this means the dependencies, which are just this one. So it's another way of saying it's like the same thing I did over here when I said, well, it's called fd-proxy. Do I have a variable for that? Package base, and its version, its GitHub tag is 33b8 yada yada yada. There's a tag for that. There's a variable for that. Let's use that. Same thing here. They could write explicitly fd-proxy fd-proxy.c, but those are strings that are part of this rule, and we can just refer to them. That's what that's about. So I've made my patch that I think will help, and you can see here for a diff, you can type package diff. Let's do that. I'll just copy that command, and that'll show me what I just did, except that I'm in tmux. There. And if I pipe that through color diff, it'll look a little better. Yeah. So the first part, not strictly necessary. GCC probably would have been fine, but whatever. I'm in there. I'm making a patch anyway. And the second part is when I have my own C flags and LD flags, it should use them. And package source will provide them in the environment. So that's really all we need. So now, you'll notice right now, what's in my directory? I have a description. I have a make file. I have those checksums. I have the build place where build directory is happening. And a plist is what we're going to make pretty soon. That's the packing list. That says what we expect this package to install so that it can give a success or a failure depending on if those things got installed or not. So now I want to say mk patches. It goes along with package diff and package vi, and it looks through the work directory for any .orig and does a lot like what package diff does and puts it magically in a patch named according to the path of the file that was patched. In this case, and relative to the work directory. And so in this case, it's just makefile, and it also made a makefile.orig. I know that I don't want that. And let's look at what it came up with. It came up with this. And so now, if I want this patch to be applied to my code, I have to say, put its checksum in this file with all the checksums. Otherwise, we don't know what we're applying to this code. So for that, you can say make patch sum, and there's a short version MPS, and you can see like it didn't find anything new to do because it just did it. And then we can see here, there is now a SHA-1, which is okay for a patch right there. The patches are in our source tree. So really they're checking for integrity more than they're checking for nefariousness. Just like, did the transport manage to get you the bits? So like the security of the supply chain for a random tarball off the internet, for that we want really good checksums. In fact, we want more than one. So it's really hard to come up with a different image that produces the same hashes for two different hashes. That's pretty good. For patches, the supply chain security depends on the supply chain security of our source code repository. So that's a different game, and we have different concerns. And this is just, it's basically like a CRC for the bytes with the patches. So we have a patch, and let's run package lint. What does it say? Ah, yes, it says we have an error. I made a new patch, but it doesn't describe what's going on with it. We could say package lint E to find out more. Let's do that. Package source tries to have as few patches as possible. Each patch must document why it's necessary. Typical reasons are portability, that's what we're after here, or security. Typical documented patch after the CVS ID tag will say something like this, and then try to upstream the patches is what they say. This package doesn't look like it has a lot of upstream going on. It looks like it's been pretty tired for a pretty long time. And it's a really small patch, so we're not too worried about carrying it around. But we do have to say what we're trying to do. And I'm going to say respect um, um, users, C flags, and LD flags. I'll just say this. And this is good in general in case somebody has different optimization settings. Maybe they build specific to their CPU. Maybe they build unoptimized so they can debug things. Um, it is user settable. And also, it has implications for package source features on some platforms. So, for example, on NetBSD, this is on the Mac right now, but on NetBSD, um, packages are built by default with a bunch of hardening options like Relro, um, SSP, um, various sort of build time and runtime protections that make exploits harder to exploit. If there are bugs in software, it's harder to take advantage of them. And those are compile time flags, and they get passed down to builds by C flags and LD flags. Package source puts them there, and they get passed down. So we won't see that on my Mac, but that is also a reason why a package should be able to build with C flags and LD flags from the environment. So having done this, we have to run make MPS again because the bytes changed. And now we're back to almost green. And now if I type a make patch, it will have one to apply. You can see that it did. Applying package source patches, it verified this one and it didn't complain because it has the right sum. And then it applies it, and that's our comment. And if we look in there again, that's the way we wrote it. So the patch is automatically applied. And now if I do a make, the build should look a little different, and it does. It has the default package source flags here. It has this. I don't know why it needs that, but it has it, and it has a program. And now we're ready to, we're almost done here. Now we need to, we had a build succeed, and now we want to install it. So a nice way to get there is to do a make stage install. Package source has an idea of a staging directory for installation. Maybe another way to call it is a destdir. Um, this is not an original idea to package source. So far, everything we've done is as non-root. We can build this as non-root, we can fetch it as non-root, patch it as non-root, all of which is good to be able to do these things as unprivileged users. That protects against, right now I'm building it as my own user. So if somebody put an rm-rf in a configure script, my data is at risk, right? But other users on the system are not. Um, And if I really was concerned about that, it hardly ever happens. If I was really concerned about that, I would make a separate user and I would change to that user and I would do my package source development or even building as that user. I don't have that level of concern, but it's a very easy concern to have and it's a very easy concern to productively do something with. But so we have a dester, so we can install as non-root, and then we prepare a binary package from that staged install. So let's do that staged install. Oopsie. And it's going to complain at the end because there's no install target. Our makefile, as provided by the package, has no instructions. It has instructions for how to build this program, but not for how to put it anywhere in particular. That is fine. We don't need it to. We have our own way to provide that. So we're going to say that we need a do install target. And we're going to say that we need some installation ders to be provided, and there's going to be a bin. That's where the program's going to go. And there's going to be a share doc package base, and that's where the README is going to go. Because otherwise, I have to make sure to create these directories myself, but we have a declarative way to do that. And these are relative to the package source prefix, which on my system is /opt/pkg. Doesn't really matter. Package source handles that. So for do install, I'm going to say cd work source and do it this way. Install program. This is a macro that's provided. Let's look at what it means. It means using your Unix's install command. And you can see it's doing it as me because we're still unprivileged. And that's fine. It's N755 because it's executable. Install program. I'm going to call it package base here too. That's the name of the program. To bin. And install data. Slightly different, but with a 644 because it's just data. Readme.md to share doc package base. So let's try that again. Let's try make stage install. What didn't work? Creating installation directories. Work. Dester op package share doc fd-proxy. Okay, well it's a small enough package we can just do it again. Make stage install. We'll do everything we did manually and then try to install. Okay, so the problem persists. What does it mean? Let's look. We cd'd into the work directory. We tried to install fd-proxy into bin. Did that work? I don't see that it did. Oh, ha ha ha. I missed that we need to do this. That's going to help a lot. And, yep, I continued to miss something. This is the way to say it. Oops. Yeah, that's going to work even more better. Yeah, okay, so now it actually put the files where I wanted it to. The following files are in this path, but not in the packing list, because we didn't make the packing list yet. So there's a program called fd-proxy in bin, and there's a readme called that in sharedoc fd-proxy, and that doesn't match what this package was supposed to provide. So one thing I could do is go into here and edit it. But it has a much better idea, which is that I should make print plist. And it will take whatever is installed, and then I can put that into plist. And now plist looks like that. And now when I say make repackage or something like that, we have a package. Would you look at that? It's going to be work tester, or where does it go? Work packages dot packages. fd-proxy. Yeah, so that's a tarball thing. It's a specially formatted tarball. You can see what's in there. It has some metadata, all those plus files, and it has the data. It has that program and that README. Let's see what that program looks like. It's a Mach-O 64-bit ARM64. That's the best kind of ARM64, the 64-bit ARM64 executable. We should be able to run it. It doesn't have any dynamic linking, so it should be able to run from where it is with what's installed now. Oh yeah, so you can see where I put things before. Let's do this from scratch, and we'll say make install. So this is what a user will do. They will have a clean checkout, and all they're going to say is make install, and maybe they'll say clean afterward too. And it will fetch, it will patch, it will build, it will package, and it will install the package. To install the package, it did need to be root. It used sudo for that. Yeah. And now it's installed, and I can say make info, and that's what that looks like. That's pretty good. And if I say show me the installed files from fd-proxy, aha, I found something we should fix before we commit. The directory I'm in is called fd-proxy with no hyphen. The program and so far the package are called fd-proxy with a hyphen. So I think what I want to do now, this is something I do occasionally when it's questionable. I look at other package systems and see if they have this and what they've done with this. Because there's no point in my being different unless it's really worthwhile being different. And so I'm not exactly sure if I should put the hyphen in the name of the directory or not, but we can see what FreeBSD ports did. We can see what OpenBSD ports did. One way to do that is to go to Repology, which is a really cool site for tracking all the different versions of software and packages that are out there. And so I guess I want to do a search of packages for fd-proxy without a dash. Not any. How about fd-proxy with a dash? Also not any. Okay, so nobody else has this yet. We can look one more time to convince ourselves of that. We can go into FreeBSD ports, OpenBSD ports, and if I really wanted to, I could look in Mac ports. But I think all those systems are tracked in Repology, so it's really excessive. What we can do here is look for anything named proxy, and there are a bunch. None of them is FD. And we can do the same thing here. Show me any directories, with proxy in the title. There are many more here. Let's less that up. Anything called FD? No. Okay. So my nearest peers don't have this. Let's look at the GitHub page again. Yeah, you know what? It looks to me like the easiest thing to do. It's the program has a dash, the repo has a dash. I think the easiest thing to do is to go up a level and just before anybody else ever gets it under this name, make it be that name, and then it matches itself. I think that's the easiest. And we're in good shape here for bringing this into package source. I think it's ready to go. I didn't even try fd-proxy yet. Does it run? Let's look at the let's look at the example that it installed. Package share doc fd-proxy readme. Here we go. It's saying that I can say TCP server dash v 127.0.0.1 8000 TCP client. This is what it was talking about. It's connecting a server to a client, and that gives you a proxy with existing tools. 0, 1, 22, and I'm going to not run from the current directory. I'm going to run the installed one from my path, redirecting standard error to standard out. And because this is DJB land, we're going to format timestamps in this way. I think I have those programs installed. Yes, I do. There. Cool. Okay. You can see there's a TCP server listening. And now it says I can SSHP right there, that example, SSH-P 8000 localhost. And that should go through the proxy. I do have an SSH service running, so that should just work. Modulo may be accepting a fingerprint because it's on a new port. Yeah, look at that. Before I accept it, I can see that it was my TCP server that accepted. We now have one connection of the maximum 40. It's connecting from 127, and the PID of the TCP server is this one. My source port must be this, and it's going to connect me to that. And that is super, super interesting. Huh. Yeah. Huh. SSH connection is on localhost. I guess it incremented the source port by one since we tried this. And there we are. And I can come out of there and the connection closes. Huh. That's fun. I like that. I don't know what I'm going to use that for, but I like that, and I like knowing that it's packaged and easy to try and easy to uninstall. Speaking of uninstall, let me just show you that that works. So right now we have fd-proxy, we have the README that we read, and now I'll say make deinstall. That's one way to do it from the source directory. Or you could also say, if you don't have package source, you're just using binary packages, you would say sudo package delete fd-proxy, and that's what make deinstall will do. Now it's gone. I don't have that. If I try to look at the README, it's not there. That's why we package stuff, folks, so that we can not have it when we want to not have it. And that makes it easier to have. Okay. Package lint was clean, right? Yeah, it looks fine. That's excellent. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit this. I'm a package source developer. I have commit access to the repository. The repository is in CVS. Yes, I know what you're saying. Convenience, value, and service. No, it's that's the system our repository is in. We have Git mirrors, but our own repository is in CVS. NetBSD's, the operating system, is as well. So someday this will change, probably to Mercurial. Um, the reasons are beyond my understanding, but I'm happy to commit in whatever system we have for committing, so we're going to do that. And the way to do that, when you are a fallible human person like me, is to pull up the package source guide and look for where it says CVS add. And then I make sure that I do everything in the right order. So here we are. First, you go into the category, which is sysutils. I suppose it could be in net. Let's consider that for a second. This is another thing to consider. Um, it's a program in C that connects a TCP server and TCP client pair to make a TCP proxy. Why did I put this in sysutils when I have it net? Is there anything else called proxy in this directory? Yeah, you know what? I don't like this choice. I think we should take fd-proxy and put it into net. And I think then we should say net. It's possible to have more than one category, but I can't think of any reason why this was a sysutils, and I think it's a net, and I'm not sure it's anything else. So that's better, and I'm glad I had the chance to think about that. Let's check it again. Okay. You know, I wonder if it would complain if this didn't match. Random. Yeah, it says it's exactly both things that I was hoping for. There's no such category random, and the primary category should be net because we're in net. Awesome. Package lint is really, really cool. Net. Whoop, clean again. Great. So now I can do what it says and cd into the category, CVS add fd-proxy, and then cd in there, and then cd add whatever we have. CVS add description, makefile, plist, dist info, and we have to do this in two steps. The patches directory first. CVS is really weird about directories. And then we can add anything that's in patches. And now we're ready to commit. Status is just to check if you added everything, but I did. I did. So we're going to commit with a T. Okay, and here we put a nice message. I usually like to take a couple pieces here. I would do the comment from the makefile, add fd-proxy, like so, and then I would add the description, like that. And that's a nice commit message for the first version of something. There it goes. Now I come back up here to the category makefile and look for fd and make sure that it's included when somebody builds all the packages in that category. Usually that's a bulk build. So add and enable fd-proxy. Go back in there. Whoop, that didn't work yet. Somebody else has updated that file since I did. So we CVS up the category makefile, noise, and it probably left a turd. And I don't need to keep the turd because I can look for, did it merge it itself? It looks like it did. Oh, that's gonna update a lot of stuff. That's fine. Yeah, update everything in my net directory. I need to do a package source update. Okay, what I really wanted to know is if I diff the category makefile, is it just my addition? Yes, and so now I can try again. Add and enable fd-proxy. That time it worked. And now I cd back into fd-proxy, and I say make ctype equals added. Usually it's just a change when you say make commit changes entry or CCE, but in this case it's a new package. So when we put an entry in the changelog for package source, it should say added. And that's going to do that and commit it. And now this should have nothing interesting to CVS update there, and it don't. And that's been committed to package source. There's one more thing I like to do as a maintainer of a lot of packages. Let's see if we can see how many packages. Ag L. I'm going to look recursively through package source for, let's look at what that string looks like. Something kind of like this. Maintainer equals, and then I don't care a lot, and then schmons. And that is going to be approximately 150. So I have a lot of packages that I'm responsible for. One more now. Um, I get away with this by mainly being responsible for packages that never get updated. This one probably will be in that list. Um, I'm responsible for a lot of Dan Bernstein's software, and he's not updating his software anymore. There are some software by other people that are influenced by him that are occasionally updated. Um, for instance, the S6 ecosystem by Laurent Bercot, um, S6, the process supervision, S6 networking, the UXPy TCP tools, Scalibs, which is the library that underlies all of those. He updates those pretty regularly, and they're pretty cool. Erwin Hoffmann is responsible for derivations of UXPy TCP that are IP version 6 compatible. That's UXPy TCP 6, or SSL, TLS compatible, UXPy SSL, derived from work by William Baxter. And those he does update as well. So some of these get updated, but 151 of them don't get updated regularly. It's a smaller number. That's how I get away with maintaining so many. And something I like to do for my convenience is to also put each package into its own little Git repository. CVS is fine. For package management, for sure, it's fine. Like we don't do a lot of complex branching. Once a quarter, we make a branch for stable. And so if you want to have a stable branch, it's quarterly, and you update quarterly. Otherwise, we all work off of trunk on current. And developing a package doesn't need a lot of branching typically. But you have to be online to talk to the CVS server. It's not a distributed version control system. And this doesn't happen a lot these days, but it used to, and maybe someday will again, that I would be on an airplane with time and attention and energy to hack on something, but not online. And for that reason, I found it useful to put things into Git. And then I would have my own little Git for each package. And so I'm going to do that for this, and then we're going to call the stream done. So this is a cool little trick. This is how you can have code in more than one version control system at the same time. It's actually not that big a deal as long as they're independent of each other. So to make this possible, in my CVS ignore, I ignore a .git directory or a .github directory. And that means I can freely put those in my fd-proxy directory. And it's not going to wind up committed to package source by mistake. And then on the flip side, in my git ignore, I ignore CVS metadata. And that means that I don't have to track that. So all I really have to do is what GitHub says to do when you want to make a new repo. You do a git init, and then you git add everything, and then I would say add package source fd proxy to git for offline hacking. Now there's a commit, and then you go over to GitHub and you say, yo, make me a new repo. And my convention is to call it package source fd-proxy. It's always leading with package source because it makes it unique, as you can see. Nobody else is naming things like that. Certainly I only name things like that. And then it also disambiguates if I wanted to work on a fork of fd-proxy itself, then it wouldn't conflict. And that happens in the case of Qmail, for example. I have a tree called Qmail in my GitHub, and there's a package source package called Qmail. So its repository is package source Qmail, and that way I can have both. For the description, I like to take what was in the comment, just like that. Public is fine, create repository. And I already did most of this, so now I just need to add the remote and push to origin. And now, when I reload this page, it's almost the way I like. I just edit a couple of these things. I point it to where there will be, there isn't quite yet, but there will be pretty soon, a little web page at pkgsrc for this package. And then I try to turn all these off because I'm not doing any of that in the GitHub environment. And so, yeah, this page won't exist yet, but I'll show you what a page like that could look like. This package mentions OOX by TCP. Here's what the OOX by TCP version of that looks like. So that shows you the latest version. It shows you who maintains it. That's another way to see what I maintain is to go here. Woo! It's a lot. This is the description. This is the build time dependencies. If there were runtime dependencies, they'd be there too. Options, build time options include this. This is where you can get the original tarball for this thing from. And here's a CVS history. And you can go here to get to the CVS history directly. And you can go here to go to the things homepage, which is a Dan Bernstein site, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And so pretty soon, when pkgsource.se catches up, it will have this. And so I put that there. And there's one more thing I like to add too, which is for each of my GitHub repositories, if I can remember, I like to add my GitHub sponsors information for people that want to support my open source. So I'm going to make dir GitHub, and I'll just copy over a funding from one of these other ones into GitHub. Add GitHub sponsors metadata. And because CVS is going to ignore that, I don't have to worry about putting that into the real package source repo. And then when we come back here, if people feel like supporting me, they can do that with GitHub sponsors, or Ko-fi, or LiberaPay, or Patreon, or PayPal, or Flatter, if they like my open source work. And I'll just take a quick look at that open source work for a second here. I have lots and lots of repositories. Let's see how many of them start with package source. Many of them do. 163, pretty similar to the other number. Oh, you know what? I can add a little bit more to this stream. I just remembered. So we just added a package. We packaged something and we committed it anew to package source. That's one kind of work that can be involved. Another kind of work that can be involved is updating. That's much more frequent. And usually it's pretty simple. So this is one of the packages that I maintain that does need an update. I happen to remember. Repology is how I find out. Let me show you that. So I have a subscription with RSS to, or maybe it's an email notification to Repology, and it will tell me whenever one of my packages seems to be not the latest version compared to others. I have a few. Bink IMAP is an abandoned IMAP server. There's a devel version called 1.34. Arguably, I should update, or I should report it as like a different branch. Repology needs help from package maintainers and users to know what version numbers mean. Otherwise, it has to naively compare. And in this case, it's questionable whether I should update because this is the last released version and this is the last development version. So in the meantime, I have it notifying me. CircOS is some kind of a circular graphical visualization thing. I made that for a friend, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. There's an update, but I'm not super motivated to do it right now. Solfege is ear training software for musicians or for anybody that wants to be a musician that helps you hear a note, the interval between notes, and otherwise practice identifying what you can hear and training your ear. And that one, I think, also is about a latest release version and a latest development version. It's got a little footnote. Does that mean something? I don't know yet. But the one that I know there's an update, because I just updated to 3.1.0, is approval tests for Python, the Python implementation of approval tests. So let's go do that. And that'll be a nice way to finish up. So this is a testing library with implementations in various languages, including Python and others. Let's go into develop PyApproval tests over here too. And I just did this update the other day, but let's go and see what the new version has. We're going to go to the Python version, releases, fixed required dependencies. Ah, yes, I saw this when I was trying to get the test to run for this package. And now I can fix it because somebody analyzed it and upstreamed it. So we are going to grab this tarball 3.1.1. I think it should work if I just increment that version and say make some. This is something that users don't usually do and shouldn't usually do. It's something that package maintainers usually do when there's a new version and we need to put checksums on things. So this will fetch it and expect that it won't match and change it so that it does. Now, one of the benefits of having my packages in my own little Git repositories, one way that I could see what just changed is to do a CVS diff against the server and manually pass it through color diff so it looks decent. And that will show me that so far I bumped the version and now we have a new version with changed checksums. And it's 11 bytes smaller also while we're at it. But that took a moment and it's a little inconvenient to type. And instead I can say git diff and it's a local action, nice and fast. So even if I'm not offline, this is handy to have my own little Git repo of the same code. So what changed? I need to prepare a commit message for that. It says fix add empty files install dependency. So I like to start collecting my commit message in a file, update to 3, and I have a format I like to follow, update to version, and then I say from the changelog, wherever that changelog was found, and typically I would include something like that. And then maybe I would format it a little more nicely, like that. Yeah. And now we want to see what changed. This is probably going to be in setup.py because it's a Python project. And let's check that out. There's something called empty files that it needs to install. So at this point, we want to look at our own package. Our own package encodes the dependencies that were there before. We have a dependency on paperclip 1.5.27 or newer, and that's here. And then in the most recent version, they just added a dependency on Beautiful Soup 4. That's here. I think PyTest is already present, and it's more of a test dependency than a build dependency. So that's why it's not here. And then empty files is a new one. So my job now as a packager is to see if we have this in package source somewhere. Already packaged, a Python package called empty files. So let's see. Empty files. I don't see it. So there's a Python module called empty files. This may be bigger than we want to do now because we've already been at this for a while. But let's look. If we go to PyPy this way to the approval test page on PyPy, we will see probably a link to what we're looking for, or we can search for empty files here. Here it is. There's empty files of many types. This is, that's why I don't see it anywhere. It's a brand new package that needs to be added. I have time, but I'm not feeling really excited about it right now. So I'm going to defer this update. We'll do that for a different stream. In order to complete this approval test update from 3.1.0 to 3.1.1, arguably to do the 3.1.0 update in the first place, we need empty files, this new Python package, to be in package source. So we need to add that package so we can add a dependency on that package. So in my next stream, I'll do that. So let's recap what we did today. Today we talked about UXPy TCP, the sort of inetd inspired networking software that takes TCP listening and connecting out of your program's code base, out of your program's address space, and handles it for you with some nice side effects. And then we talked about making a new package and why we might want to do that and how package source helps with that. We created a new package, something called fd-proxy, that was right back here, that takes advantage of UXPy TCP, and we ran it and we saw that it works. It was pretty cool. And then we uninstalled it because it's a package and it's easy, and that's pretty cool. Of course, this is a trivial case of uninstalling. It's 2 files, but bigger packages are equally easy to uninstall. We looked a little bit at how GitHub sponsors works. If you have GitHub sponsors approved for yourself, you just need a piece of metadata in funding.yml, and then it makes these links on the side. We talked about repository naming, and why all these packages that I have my own little repos of have package source in front of their names. We talked about why you might want to have your code in more than one repo. In CVS because that's the repository of record, but also in Git because it's easier to work with in more situations. And then we ran into a really common problem thinking that we could do a simple update. And very often an update would have been as simple as update that version number that I did and say make some and make sure the thing still packages and installs. If it has self-tests, if it still passes them, and then you commit, and that's pretty easy with the commit message that I was about to write. But this was not a simple case. This was a case of a new dependency that is not yet in package source. And so for that, we'll come back to that in the next session, and we'll add that package from scratch instead of coming in a little bit after the beginning like we did today. We'll add the Python empty files module from scratch, and then we will update this dependency, or we'll update the package of Python approval tests using that dependency. And then it will be simple, and we'll commit that. So thanks for watching. I have a lot of fun with package source, and I'm really happy to share it. It's super practical, super helpful, a little weird to work with make files and patches, but you get used to it. And once it's all automated, you never have to think about it again. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.